Hey, Susan, did you ever read The Wrinkle Cure by Dr. Nicholas Perricone in the early aughts?
Did I? That was actually the skincare Bible of its day. We all read it. And what's interesting, Hill, is everything in there is still applicable to today.
No kidding. Dr. Perricone truly changed my life. I still, to this very day, follow the anti-inflammation diet. I still have his little cookbook and his recipe book from the Wrinkle Cure. And you and we both met him when he launched his skincare brand, which was the number one skincare brand for well over a decade in the early 90s. And then as a beauty editor at Sephora.com, I had the good fortune of doing dozens of interviews with him, working on his PBS special as an audience member. And I even got to do his makeup a few times. And let me tell you something. Back then, doing his makeup consisted of brushing his brows and maybe doing a little anti-shine down the center of his face because his glow was so incredible. Fast forward to just a couple of years ago, I did his makeup again for a photo shoot, and I thought, oh, it's been 25 years. He's going to need a little more. No, the man still has the glow. He still has that radiance. Brows, anti-shine. We're talking no concealers, no powders, no putties. And for our audience, if you are not familiar with Dr. Perricone, if you didn't grow up with this Bible and his anti-inflammation and longevity advice, you've got to run. It is not outdated. It truly is the Bible. It's evergreen.
Yeah. I actually don't eat salmon without thinking about him to this day.
Or blueberries, right? I
Or
mean,
blueberries.
I feel like he should be getting some sort of a kickback from both of those industries.
Right, exactly. Yeah, the salmon industry owes him a big thank you because between the salmon, the blueberries, the green tea, all of this was revolutionary, Hill. I mean, this was stuff we really weren't eating and consuming on a regular basis. I think to myself now, I follow a really strict anti-inflammatory diet, as I know you do. But then I think back to years ago, I guess I was then too, because we were all following Dr. Perricone's anti-inflammatory diet. It was huge, and it still is today.
The principles still ring true. And talk about the skincare. It was the first skincare product that actually radically changed my skin. He introduced us to CoQ10, alpha
Yes.
lipoic acid, the proper use of vitamin C, ester, all of it radically
No, it's
changed my
true.
skin. And for the past 25 years, I think it has a lot to do with me feeling pretty good about approaching 50. So, without further ado, shall we introduce the man himself?
Yes. I can't wait.
Well, thank you for the invitation, and it's nice to have this reunion. It's been years since we've all been together, and I was just commenting before we started recording about you people haven't aged at all in the past 25 years. So I'd like to take credit for that, but I probably can't take credit for all of that.
Well, you actually can. I still follow, the Paracone prescription. I still have the wrinkle cure. And this is like my little nutritional Bible. And you taught me so early on that beauty started with the inside, and you were a rebel at the time. Nobody else was talking about this.
Yes, it's interesting that it was something like I thought was just pretty obvious and and was well established in the literature. There was a tremendous pushback, especially in academics, to the point wherein it was really kind of a hostile environment. So it taught me that science probably, which is supposed to be based on empiric evidence, or if you're a scientist, you should always have curiosity, even if it's something that you hadn't been thinking about. But the response was more like it was a religion where you fall outside of the belief system. Instead of let me get curious, it's just let me get angry. And that's still holding up because I'm now working in other areas and submitting papers, and there's a lot of anger when it's new, and it makes no sense at all to me.
It's incredible. Well, you were a rebel, and I remember hearing about some of that pushback. And I know that those of us that, had smaller voices were always
Hmm.
championing and trying to get the word out, which I believe was effective at the time, from the PBS specials, the success of your books, and you had the number one selling skincare line for decades. So I don't know that anybody eats salmon or blueberries or thinks about CoQ10 or alpha lipoic acid without giving you credit.
Well, it is interesting now that it's mainstream, that looking at it. But right now, I'm doing some new work, and not in the area of nutrition or medicine, but in the area of physics, which is kind of unusual. But I have a hobby, and so I'm submitting journal articles, and the same thing's happening that happened 25 years ago with the anti-inflammation thing, and they're rejected. And some of the rejections are really kind of funny. I'm saving one. It was just outrageous. It was just insults.
No.
Yes, totally. It was phenomenal. Sometime offline, I'll read it to you. It's just
Okay.
incredible.
Would love to
So
hear
anyway,
that.
I'm hoping that things do continue changing. I'm glad that this is mainstream now, and everybody's following it because it can make a huge difference in reducing our risk for disease, especially age-related diseases, and also increase health span without necessarily increasing lifespan. But they do go hand in hand. So we are going to get better, more years from this. But it's real simple, and it's affordable, and it's something people should just learn. And right now, I'm working with the Yale School of Public Health on trying to bring nutrition into the school systems. First of all, it's a two-pronged approach. Number one, try to get the curriculum from kindergarten right through high school on nutrition, and there are nutrition courses. And these children could bring this information back to their families and change their health. And the second part is making sure that all the foods in the cafeterias that are getting federal money, which is all of the public schools, have to have just healthy choices. Right now, they don't. It's just junk food. And it can make such a huge difference in children's lives if they're getting proper nutrition. So I'm working on that area, and I continue working on it. And I have a new book coming out in January.
Oh,
And the title is going to remain a secret until that time, but I think you're going to really enjoy it. And I think, and people said, well, gee, it's been 10 years since your last book. This is book number 10. And they said, why haven't you done this before? I said, well, I don't want to write a book unless I have something new to say. I mean, people keep on pumping out books, and it's just derivations of what they said already. So this is a lot of new information, and I really enjoyed doing it. I'm glad I did it. It's a tremendous amount of work. But it really just refreshes your mind about what you've done in the past, and it helps you think in terms of creative ways for the future. So that'll be out in January, and we're going to hope that it's going to do well.
oh, this is so exciting. So it sounds like we'll be speaking to you here again in January then. We're going to
Yep,
want to dive in.
that's right. You have to put me on the road.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. I'll do your makeup. I'll carry your little brow spoolie and anti-shine. It's a big job.
Yeah, good.
Big job.
Well,
So we have questions for you.
yes, I want to go off script right here and now and go renegade and just say, you look even better than you did 25 years ago. Is it possible? I mean, you look absolutely incredible. You're a living testament to living the lifestyle. So I just had to go off the script and just say that. For those of you that have never seen Dr. Perricone in the past, it's unbelievable. It's just, I'm looking at you and I'm just saying, my God, it's the proof is right here. So that being said, your anti-inflammatory principles and your core formulations, they still hold true today. And Hiller and I talked about how we have followed your diet plan pretty much for the past 25 years, as well as using topical skincare. But we want to know what your take is on the industry as a whole, the evolution of the skincare and cosmetic industry. Since you revolutionized skincare 25 years ago, do you think that it's kept up? Do you think that it's changed? Are things getting better?
That's really a good question because, of course, I'm looking at that all the time. And when I got started in this, I'd done just a lot of research, and it started in med school. I was looking under the microscope at a squamous cell cancer, and I noticed it was surrounded by inflammation. And then we looked at other tissues. We looked at arteries and brain tissue and heart. And everything, there was an inflammatory infiltrate in everything. So I asked the professors, is it possible that inflammation is driving these pathologic processes rather than just being a part of the problem? And they said, no, no, it's not driving it. So I didn't believe that. And then when I started my dermatology residency, once again, it was a lot of microscope work. And it was interesting that if you took a young skin with no pathology, there was no inflammation. Aging skin with no pathology, it was loaded with inflammation. So I just continued following, that process. And so when I finally was in practice and I started looking at this, I said, gee, why not look at ways of formulating stuff for my patients that could have anti-inflammatory activity? And one thing I discovered, I was doing my pediatrics at Yale, and there was a study at the time, not at Yale, but at one of the other universities. They were looking at asthma, and asthma is an inflammatory process, of course. And they decided to do a double-blind placebo-controlled study, giving these children vitamin C, chewable vitamin Cs, and they were like those little orange, tasty things. And half of the group received, placebo, and half received the vitamin C. And when they broke the code it was over with, the children who were in the real portion, getting the vitamin C, had 50% less asthma attacks than those who were just on the placebo. So it occurred to me that antioxidants are anti-inflammatories. Now that changed everything for me. That means that there's a safe way of treating skin by using really benign antioxidants like vitamin C and others, like vitamin E, like vitamin alpha lipoic acid. And so we started looking at those and started formulating, but also at the same time formulating for ways to penetrate the skin, because it's not going to be effective if it just sits on top of the stratum corneum. And so all of this was happening, and I had a lot of data and a lot of studies. So I thought I'd bring this to the world. And so what I did is I went around the world to the research and development centers of the big companies and presented it. And there was absolutely no interest whatsoever.
Wow.
And then I ended up at one at the end of my trip, and I presented it. And it was the R&D people are they're pretty serious. So these companies have spent hundreds of millions of dollars in R&D, and they're all PhDs. And he said to me, "Are you getting any traction?" I said, "No, I'm not." He said, "Well, sit down and let me explain to you how it works. We're putting oil and water and perfume in a jar. We're making a lot of money. There's no actives to get us into trouble. So don't call us, we'll call you." So I had invested, a lot of money into my patents and everything else. And so I had to make a decision. My decision was, well, I'm going to start my own company. And my father just gasped and said, "You can't do that. You'll never be able to compete against the big guys." I said, "Well, the difference is it's based on science." And sure enough, what helped me was, of course, my first book, The Wrinkle Cure, where I got to talk about the science. And when people read the book, it got them interested in and say, "Hey, this sounds really good." They tried the diet. Let me try the topicals. So with all that happening, and then my was just like exponential growth. And it was so bad that it was really worrying the big players. Um, but nothing changed out there. I mean, they have a lot of the marketing has changed in that it's scientifically based, but the reality is nothing's changed. So that's so unfortunate to say that. But the important thing here is that if people follow the anti-inflammatory diet and lifestyle, they're going to do well. I mean, you can put wonderful topicals on your skin, but it's not going to reduce your chances of having heart disease or breast cancer. So all of this should be one program. And so that's what I'm saying. I just don't see any real breakthroughs. It's interesting. Of course, I've since sold the company. It's with the Hut Group now. And I'm very happy with the Hut Group because they've never changed the formulations.
Oh, that's
Um,
great.
that's important.
Good.
So it's
Good.
really doing well. It's carrying on, but I don't see any innovation anywhere else. I just don't. It's just astounding.
We don't either. And that's
No.
part of the reason that we thought we would ask the question, because we thought maybe we're just missing something and we didn't, want to set you up with a tough question like that. But we don't see it either. And I'm going to go a little bit off script here before I ask you about us and the people that are in our age group. It's so incredibly insightful that your next horizon is starting with children, because I think you really will change the world there. Because as you mentioned, children coming home and speaking to their parents. They will be the next generation, but influencing, those that are our age that and older that maybe didn't read the wrinkle cure are just being exposed to this for the first time. You're kind of setting the world on fire all over again, but starting with the younger generation. So that's really exciting. That's really exciting. I can't wait to hear more about it. And that brings me to my question about those of us that are, still muddling along. And we've read The Wrinkle Cure, The Perricone Promise. And as a longevity expert, what advice do you have for Generation X as we enter menopause and we are bombarded, totally bombarded by information about zombie cells, estrogen creams, copper peptides, targeted supplements? Like, what are zombie cells? Should we be worried? What should we be worried about? And
Okay.
it sounds like we're going to go back to diet.
Yes, really what we're seeing is there's a lot more data in terms of collecting information about pathology. And people don't like to hear this, but aging and pathology go hand in hand. So we have to really start with the basics. And anti-inflammatory diet, anti-inflammatory lifestyle, what does that consist of? Well, getting enough sleep. A lot of times that's not easy. Moderate exercise. I don't believe in rigorous exercise. You go to the gym and you're working out for an hour and a half, you're creating stress hormones. And I think that's going to accelerate the aging process. So everything is moderation. And so that's the approach I would like to take and just say, okay, anti-inflammatory diet, anti-inflammatory lifestyle. And I think things like meditation is really amazing because there's a lot of data showing that it really slows down cognitive decline when you're meditating on a regular basis and you just do better. So as far as the zombie cells, those are senescent cells. What happens is we have mechanisms in our body where a cell is aging and then it has protective mechanisms because if it's aging, it's going to realize that if it keeps on dividing, it'll produce cancer. So it goes into a resting state. But unfortunately, about a third of those cells, those senescent cells that are in a resting state, they keep out, they keep on producing chemicals called cytokines that are pro-inflammatory. And they end up pumping these cytokines into the circulation. And so you have a higher inflammatory burden. So scientists are looking at ways now, how do we clean up the senescent cells that are active? And so they're looking at things like chemotherapeutic agents, a lot of other ways of going about it. And hopefully it'll be successful because if we can clean up these senescent cells, especially the ones that are still active in terms of putting out pro-inflammatory chemicals, that's going to be an important breakthrough. I think that certain foods I think would be great. You want to have a lot of foods that have these polyphenols, and you get that from your olive oil and a lot of other vegetables. But there are many other ways of doing this. And I also believe in light therapy. So things like infrared are really, I think, very, very effective. And of course, I do believe in getting sun exposure, but you probably should do it, in the morning when you're getting sunlight, but there's not a lot of ultraviolet light, or late in the afternoon. And that's very healthy. I mean, vitamin D is important. And I'm a dermatologist, but I'm not really fond of sunscreens. I never was. That's why there are no sunscreens in my products. What you do is, it stops you from getting inflamed, which tells your body you've had enough sun. And so you don't get red anymore, but that energy has to go somewhere. And I think that we're not really looking at the science that much. So I'm not saying that, and obviously there's photo aging. There's a lot of good reasons why we want to do this, but I'd like to see people, get enough radiation, sunshine, without getting red, without the sunscreen. I think it'll be healthier. And of course, we need vitamin D. It's converted very quickly on the skin. And so by avoiding sun entirely, I see vitamin D levels go down, and vitamin D is a powerful anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer agent, anti-cognitive decline agent, everything there. And so it always comes back down to food and nutrients and doing that correctly, and everything in moderation.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think you touched upon something earlier, that there hasn't been anything sort of new in the world of topical skincare, and the industry really hasn't changed that much. I think we'll all agree on this call that so much of skincare, let's face it, is the marketing. right? And we hear terminology, or all of a sudden there's trends, right? So, for example, right now, menopause is huge. Everyone's talking about it. Obviously, Gen X, we're getting older, and this is affecting us. And it seems to be the hot new trend. I mean, no pun intended. But hormones in skincare, estradiol. We're hearing so much about so many people on Instagram and in social media talking about putting estrogen or actually estradiol creams on their face. Hormones in skincare, hot or not? What do
Yes,
you
well, let's talk about that in general, first of all.
think?
I do believe in basically supplementing systemically hormones as we get older. Of course, there are some issues. There seem to be, might be some, basically a relationship between some forms of basically hormone replacement therapy and then risk of certain forms of cancer. But I think they've worked that out and how that could be done. So, estrogen is amazing. If you're getting hormone replacement therapy, estrogen is an antioxidant. It's an anti-inflammatory. And they back when there was a lot of data saying, well, look, you probably should not be on this forever. And so a lot of women have to make that decision of not doing this. And I could just watch the rapid aging once they discontinued
Yeah.
their hormone therapy. So I think there's somewhere in between where we can just continue this. And I think that estrogen is an amazing possibility. And there's been some studies looking at estrogen, and there's a non-feminizing estrogen that's out there too, and it's used for prevention of hair loss. And when they did the studies on the animal studies with this non-feminizing estrogen, the male animals in the studies actually did better. Their metabolism went back to a younger set, and then also the cognitive function went way up. So I think I think a lot of research is being done, and that's going to be available to us. But I do believe in hormone replacement therapy, both for men and women.
Great.
Great.
As do
Oh,
we.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Especially the piece about hormone replacement therapy for men. We don't talk about that as much. Sometimes the beauty magazines will quip and joke about menopause, and they don't treat it very seriously. But as much as menopause has been dismissed, forgotten, brushed under the rug for women for the past decades, I don't even think we've ever talked about what men go through during those cycles outside of, you know, just the typical signs that, people have created, pharmaceuticals for. I don't think they really talk about the overall well-being. So, and that's
Yes,
important for the entire unit, the entire family unit in
yes.
society.
I mean, hormone replacement therapy for men. I mean, it does exist, and using testosterone supplements. There are different ways of doing it. If they're seeing their internal medicine doctor or they get an injection, I don't think it's the best way because you get very high levels right after your injection, then it falls down. I think there are other ways of doing that. You can actually do it in a different way. There are certain compounding pharmacies that make up essentially like lozenges, and you just take those and put it under your tongue, and it's done on a daily basis. So it's much more physiologic than getting this big bolus and then letting it drop. The other thing too is I want to mention is there are ways of increasing basically testosterone levels in your body just using certain supplements. And so I don't know if you've heard of this GlyNAC therapy. That's glycine and N-acetylcysteine. Some very good studies in terms of making you more youthful. So as we get older, the master antioxidant called glutathione begins to drop. And glutathione is so protective. It is the overall mother antioxidant of them all. But it declines as we get older. So there were some studies done. They were small studies, but they were pretty impressive that if you took N-acetylcysteine, which is a precursor, and an amino acid called glycine together in these two studies, and you can find this on like YouTube, look for the GlyNAC studies. They found that after about 10 to 12 months of this therapy, that these were older people in their 60s and up. They were pretty much close to 85% higher levels of glutathione. So it's kind of bringing you back to your 30s or late 20s. And that's amazing that we can do that. But one of the things that happens is it increases testosterone. And so instead of getting supplements for men, just do the Glynac, and I think you'll kick up the levels. And I think for women, it's not a problem. I mean, you will have higher levels, but that's not a problem. It just increases. I think your skin thickens a little bit, keeps you a little bit younger, and unfortunately, the side effect is sex drive goes up. We don't want that, right?
Oh,
Sign
heaven
us up.
forbid,
Sign
right?
us up.
Heaven forbid, right? Well, and it should help with our muscle tone as well.
Right.
It does, yes. When you
In
do
theory.
Glynac, you're going to see that you put on muscle mass faster. Glutathione's amazing. And if you want to drop your glutathiones, drink alcohol. Okay, you don't want to, because
Oh,
your liver has to detox that, and you really drop your glutathione levels. So take the N-acetylcysteine glycine and then go out for your drink.
that's great. That's great. Well, and it's true. Sex is so important as we get older. I mean, the cascade through the body is so important. So anything that we can do to support that, I think, makes the world go round.
It does.
Definitely.
It is. It is. And it's an anti-aging strategy, by the way.
We love that. There's a whole nother book there, isn't there?
There you go.
That's right. Maybe that's my next book. Yes.
Yeah. Definitely 100%. Love that. So I've noticed, Dr. Perricone, an uptick in diagnoses of rosacea. I mean, rosacea has been around forever, but I'm seeing in my clients and also our audience, rosacea, eczema, psoriasis. It seems like everybody has it, and I'm not sure if they've become a catch-all for irritation, or if has it become normalized? Is it a natural part of aging that we just need to accept? Or again, is it nutritional? Is it immune or cortisol? Is there an immune or cortisol connection here that we haven't considered, perhaps?
Yeah, there's a number of things. Of course, as we age, the immune system doesn't work as well as it should. And so you have a kind of a dysfunction. And so what happens is aging and increased levels of systemic inflammation go up. And so you're gonna see that. But you are right. You're seeing a big uptick, let's say from 20 years ago. And I think there are a lot of different reasons for that. And it might be environmental, it might be nutritional based, but also going through COVID, that, really triggered a number of issues, things like long COVID, and this inflammation goes on. And of course, you're seeing many more manifestations because dermatology is looking at inflammation on the skin. And the skin, of course, is a barometer of what's going on inside of us. So when your immune system is attacked like that by something like COVID, you don't really ever recover completely, and you'll see manifestations in dermatology. In fact, there was a whole textbook, and when I was a resident, it was written by a Dr. Braverman, Skin Signs of Systemic Disease. And so the skin tells it all. You can walk into a room and make a diagnosis just by looking at someone. So I think that's what we're seeing. And so how do we do this? We just make sure we really get strict on the anti-inflammatory diet, anti-inflammatory lifestyle, drinking adequate parts of water. So I want to talk a little bit about hydrogen water.
Yes.
So I had done so well with my company and on inflammation. I was always looking for what I call the magic bullet. What substance that could meet three criteria: inexpensive, readily available, no toxicity, and very easy to use. And so I came across in an article in Nature Medicine, very prestigious journal, about a decade ago. They're talking about the anti-inflammatory effects of hydrogen. And I'm a bit of a biochemist. I said, well, that doesn't make any sense. Hydrogen is a nonpolar molecule. It's not going to have any activity. But it was coming out of Japan. So I actually went to Tokyo and met with the scientists and the manufacturers. And they had some convincing evidence, but it was mostly animal models. And then I came back and I wanted to do my own study because in the past, when I've tried to reproduce studies, more than 50% of the time they couldn't be reproduced. So that questioned whether the results were correct or something else was going on. So I did a study with a good friend of mine, Dr. Peter Puglisi, a real brilliant guy. He should have had a Nobel Prize on the immune system, but it never happened. But anyway, we worked together and he said, well, let's look at one of the what I call touting from Japan was that it increases energy levels. So I said, Peter, how can we quantify increase in energy levels? And so he said, well, the good news is there's a molecule called NAD, and we've all heard of that now because of David St. Clair and all of that other stuff. And he said, well, the only thing that fluoresces in the skin is NAD. So we can have these LEDs made up and we can come up with a way of coming up with a computer program that's going to look at NAD levels. So we went ahead and did this. We put together the study and it was double blind. It was really a good study. And they were either getting regular water or hydrogen water. But what we did is we just put this little strap on their arm with the LED against their skin, and that was being read. And then we had them either drink hydrogen water or placebo, and we would just watch the computer. So I got there and I was ready for a long day because you have to drink the water. That means that goes mouth, esophagus, stomach, bloodstream, circulate, finally get to the skin, which is the furthest point from the center of the body, get through the skin cells, then enter the mitochondria. So I figured this can be a long day. So the first subject I was watching, and I'm looking at the computer screen, and she drank the water, and apparently it was the hydrogen water because I looked up in 2 minutes, I see the NAD levels going up. At the end of 15 minutes, the average was 12.5% increase in NAD, which is phenomenal.
Wow.
I mean, 12.5% inside the mitochondria within minutes. I said, I think we found it. So we did the study, and I did present the study at the Harvard conference. And I said, this is it. I've got to bring this to the world. So it has to be done correctly. You have to have therapeutic levels. You have to have a way to stabilize it. If you can't put hydrogen in glass or plastic, it's gone in an hour. Even if you have it in a can, it has to be sealed properly. So I did all of that research. It was very basic. And so I brought this to the world. Now I'm waiting for the world to pick it up. And I
Where
think
is
that
it? Where can we get it? Well, we need
uh,
this.
well, you can just go to the Perricone site and get it there. It's also on Amazon. There's some people that we started distributing it, but then COVID came along and everything crashed. So after 2 or 3 years, we never really got much of that. But we have a lot of inventory. The interesting thing is we kept retains that we produced 6.5 years ago, and they still have the same amount of hydrogen in them. The other ones we're testing on the shelves right now, if they're up there for a month or two, they're subtherapeutic levels. So what worries me is if you try the wrong one and you don't see a difference, you're not going to go say, well, I'm going to find another brand. You're done with hydrogen. And the study, a very good friend of mine, and uh, he actually heads the Hydrogen Water Foundation. And they did a study in India with the metabolic syndrome. Now, the metabolic syndrome is a term that physicians use that's basically a cluster of physical findings and laboratory findings. And what happens with metabolic syndrome is they want to put you on a diet, you need to exercise, because all Western diseases are downstream from metabolic syndrome. So in this Indian study in India, it wasn't large, but it was double-blind, placebo-controlled. They said, you're going to drink water twice a day. You're not going to change anything. We're not asking you to start exercising. We're not asking you to change your diet. We just want you to be yourself and then drink this water. So at the end of 24 weeks, they broke the code, and all of the subjects that were having hydrogen water, not the placebo, no longer had metabolic syndrome. Now, if you think about how profound that is, that means that all the Western diseases downstream, diabetes, heart disease, liver problems, cognitive decline, they can be delayed or completely ended by just drinking water twice a day and not having, as you tell, as a physician, you say, look, you've got to start exercising, you've got to do your diet. I mean, people are like, it's overwhelming. But to just drink hydrogen water twice a day, and was just phenomenal. So I'd love to see the world on hydrogen water. We can just think about, I'd say within 3 years, if we had the entire country on it, we can probably drop the healthcare cost by $1 trillion, 3 years,
Wow.
just
Wow.
from hydrogen water.
Wow.
So it's
Well,
going to happen. But I'm running out of energy and running out of money keeping this company going. People have to start buying stuff and start
well,
using it.
let's,
It's amazing.
well, we're on board. We're going to link it here, and
Yes.
we're
Okay,
definitely
great.
going to be sharing this podcast. So maybe, Susan, why don't we jump on Amazon? We'll order a case and let's do a 90-day test ourselves. And
Let's do it. I'm
I
in.
just had
You
blood
know
work
me.
done,
I'm in.
so
In
it's
fact,
perfect.
if you go to my website, it's a little bit better because it'd be less expensive.
Okay, we'll
Oh,
go to
great.
your
Okay.
We'll go to
website.
your
Well, and
website.
we'd love to support you directly.
But I
So,
just need to warn you, it's going to give you more radiance to your skin,
oh,
Oh, what a
oh.
shame.
Yes, what
clarity of
will we
mind,
notice? So,
and in the study, the Indian study, for some reason, the chief scientist didn't think it was important enough to include in the article that the average weight loss was 8 pounds.
really?
Wait a
Yes,
minute. Whoa, 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 whoa. Time out, time out, time out. They lost 8 pounds
that was the average. Yes.
on average use drinking the hydrogen water.
No exercise, no change in diet, nothing.
Wow.
What?
Because it
Okay,
normalizes metabolism.
we need to just right there. I mean, everything you said before that was like, oh my God, wow, wow, wow. I'm ordering some right now. This minute you said that, that's the ticket right there, my friend, to get people excited, right? I mean, if they think that there's something that will help them in their journey to look and feel their best even more, and you say weight loss, you know you have people's attention right there.
Yeah, because it normalizes metabolism, and that's the most important thing. You know, these new peptides that are out there like
Yeah,
Mounjaro and Ozempic and all that.
yeah.
It's interesting after following patients on these for a period of a year or 2 years. Yes, they lose weight, but the shocking thing was they, especially the Mounjaro users, they look 10 years younger. So by normalizing metabolism using a pharmaceutical, which seems to me fairly safe, it's just a peptide. But we can do the same thing with the anti-inflammatory diet and drinking high water. You have to spend $1,000 a month to achieve that. Okay.
I agree. I
Fascinating.
agree with you. Yeah.
Okay, so our skin is going to glow. We are going to normalize our metabolism, which means we could lose weight.
Yes.
We're going to reverse, basically any sort of metabolic issue that we might have potentially.
Hmm.
And our energy is going to improve. I remember you also telling me, and I've tested this and I give this to my clients that fly a lot and that are, doing quick trips, actors, business people. I always have a can of it in my kit for them, that it helps with jet lag. And the reason why fascinated me. Do you mind sharing if you have a moment with us about that too?
Yes. So
Very
obviously
telling.
when you're in an airplane and I think the average altitude is like say 33,000 feet. The plane is only pressurized to about you being on the top of an 8,000 foot mountain. Okay. So what you have is essentially we call hypoxia of the cells. You're not getting enough oxygen. And so I think that's a lot of the fatigue. Obviously, time zones also have something to do with it as well, but it does fatigue you, and then you have to come down. And when I talk to other physicians, they go, yes, yeah, but your blood oxygen goes back, within 10 minutes. I said, yes, but the cell is still hypoxic. And so by drinking hydrogen water, what you do is, without big scientific explanations, is you supply those electrons to your cells, and they kind of counteract that. So you're counteracting the hypoxia, and that's why you feel really good.
Incredible.
Wow.
Incredible. So for the average person that's listening and they're wondering, okay, where do I start? They're already on your website. They're ordering it right now. 2 cans a day? Is that what you recommend minimum?
Yes, 2 cans a day minimum. I drink about three. I love it the first thing in the morning because the brain fog goes away instantly, and I get
Wow.
a good energy level. And then I also do one before my workout, and then I'll do one about 3 or 4 in the afternoon because I need to get more clarity in my brain. I'm usually working, more on subjects like
Okay.
writing, other things. And it's just great, really phenomenal. It was really helpful to me in terms of making my symptoms feel less worse when I had COVID. And so I definitely drank a lot of that
Oh,
during that
good.
period of time. It's not going to cure anything, but I'm telling you, it's a nice palliative. And even patients who have different illnesses. I mean, like I said, we're not talking about it curing your disease, but we're talking about making you feel better. And that's even, all across the full spectrum.
And sometimes that's the motivation you need, If you feel better, you look better. You look better, you feel better. I always say it's a cycle, right?
Yes. And of course, from the study in India, it normalizes metabolism. We know that that's the key into
Huge.
prevention of aging. And it's a great anti-inflammatory. It really is I'm quite surprised, but it is truly an anti-inflammatory. And of
Yeah.
course,
Well,
I started a product line when I still had the company, and we had hydrogen topicals, but the partners that came in dropped it. They dropped a lot of things, and that's unfortunate. But when you have partners that come in that are more financially oriented, you tend to lose the philosophy a bit. But like I said, I'm very happy with the hut that they've maintained the formulations. They're basically an online rather than a lot of retail. That really it worked out for them because when COVID came along, all the stores were closed and the sales just went right through the roof for them. So I'm hoping to continue doing well, and I think they're maintaining the philosophy.
Well, that's very encouraging to hear. I've had a lot of people ask me, Hillary, I heard that Dr. Perricone has sold the company. Do you think they've, monkeyed with the formulations? And in my experience with the things that I've tried, because I've been such a loyal, dedicated Perricone MD user and lover for so many years, I haven't noticed a difference. And I've noticed that the efficacy is still there, even in the supplements. So I'm happy to be able to report from your mouth that you're pleased with what they're doing. And just yesterday, I was speaking with another brand founder that was so excited to hear that we're talking to you. She said, he's inspired everything that I've been doing. I have to send him a note. I have to write him a note. Can you get it to him? And I said, I'm sure he would love to hear it. So it's just phenomenal. And what you've done for the industry over the past 25 years and what you're ramping up to continue to do. I know that I'm looking forward to my 50th birthday in November in a radically different condition and state than I would have been had I not met you in my early 20s. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Well, it's really good to hear you say that, because when I was doing all of this work and I really believed in it because I could see differences in my patients and in the studies I did. So it's great to share this information in the world. And the nice thing too is wherever I travel, and that's worldwide, people will recognize and come over and they'll tell me stories. In fact, I was in Italy. I was visiting the Vatican, and I was downstairs from the cathedral where they had the bones of one of the apostles. And this woman comes up and she had a British accent. And she said that she read my book and she was using the diet. And she said she's off all of her medications and felt great. And she starts crying. And I said, wow, this is great. What's better than being in a church and hearing that you're doing positive things for people? So that's been my greatest gratification. But I love skincare. I love the fact of creating these products and using my theories of inflammation to something that's very visible. And then, but of course, it's very important. So it's always beauty from the inside out and the outside in. And, moderation and exercise and everything else. Um, and I want to talk a little bit too, before we go, about nicotine. So
Oh,
people who smoke, of course, it's disastrous. Smoke cigarettes increases your risk of let's just turn this off here. It's going to so it's important to talk about this. So when I was doing my new book, I was looking at a lot of new information, and it was a great experience, by the way. You really have to be forced to write a book because you really start digging into the literature you haven't had time to look at. And so nicotine is a tremendously excellent anti-inflammatory for brain cells and
interesting.
inflammation. But we do not want people smoking or or doing chewing tobacco, whatever thing like that. But if you take something like a Nicorette gum and
Mhm.
you take the 2 milligrams as a pick-me-up, so you need to do something like this or your work, whatever. You can get the nicotine, get the anti-inflammatory effects from it. Um, and it's not, I'm not saying that there's no negative effects, but I'm just saying that it's a great way to drop inflammation in the brain and give yourself a pickup in addition to a cup of coffee.
Fascinating.
So that's
I
what one
have,
of the things, yeah.
I'm so glad that you brought this up. I had heard a little bit about this, but I also heard that nicotine gum or even the patch, particularly the gum, could also cause a spike in your blood sugar. Is that true? And I don't know, this may have just been somebody that didn't like the study that said it was great for your brain.
Yeah,
Do we
I
have
don't
to
really
worry
have a
about a glycemic spike with it?
It's possible. I haven't really looked at that.
Okay.
But when you're doing something, this thing you're doing, 2 milligram for a little pick me up, I don't think it's going to be significant, but maybe I should just take a look at the literature and we'll follow up with you with
Okay.
that. But I've been living on it. I don't smoke. But when I have work to do, and I have a lot of work to do, and I also, in addition to everything else, I decided I was going to take a master's degree at Yale in public health. And it's a Zoom class at night. And, by the time the class starts at 8 o'clock, I'm not going to survive. So I chew my Nicorette gum to get through it.
Love it. I
And
love
going
it.
to say that's bedtime for me. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love that.
oh,
You've got to do what you've got to do,
it's
and
bedtime for me too. So I just
Yeah.
don't want you to know that I'm sleeping in the chair
right.
at the Zoom
See, and
class.
we just love this. I know that you're always up to something. So it's
Yeah.
so exciting to get to share. And, I can't wait for the book. I can't wait to hear the title. I can't wait for the next book that you're going to be doing all about sex after that. We're going
Yeah.
to talk about all those hormones and everything that happens there. But before we go, I have to tell you a funny story. You said something to my mom. Gosh, it must have been 2004, 2006. And to this day, this woman, she looks phenomenal. She still takes your supplements, still does your diet. I'll send you a photo. She looks phenomenal. And she just had a pool party with all of her girlfriends last weekend. And someone was giving her, like, kind of joking with her, giving her a little bit of, a razz about, how she looks. And, oh, Lorianne is just so vain. And she turned around with her bright red hair and looked at them and she said, Dr. Perricone says that vanity is the gateway to good health. So being vain is keeping me healthy. So you have
Look,
a redhead running around saying that.
vanity is wonderful because it's a motivator. And,
Yes.
and if you have absolutely no vanity whatsoever, you're not going to stick to the program. And it's
Right.
not just about looks. I mean, when you look, the skin is a barometer of what's going on inside of you. So this is going to keep you healthy and, for the rest of your life. So we're not talking about trivial things here.
Right. And that's what she said. She said, I don't need to be here a very, very long time, but I want to feel good while I am. And she watched, her mother and her father suffer from all kinds of metabolic diseases, which is why she's running around out there carrying the Perricone flag all these years later. So she's just absolutely tickled that we're going to be talking to you. And she will be definitely on the list for the next book. So
Okay, great. We should probably plan a kind of a book signing in in LA.
let's
Uh,
do it.
so we'll do that. We'll have fun and we'll find a good spot and meet all
Love
the
to.
people. Spend a lot of time there, and we have a lot of great people who are interested in staying healthy.
That's right.
Fantastic.
So
Let's do it. There are
we'd
a
love
few
to have you
private.
in New York and Philadelphia and
Mhm.
Boston. I'm on the East Coast, so let's go.
Okay, let's get organized.
Let's do it.
I'm ready to
Perfect.
show up with my nicotine gum underneath my tongue.
I
Got
love
it.
it. I
We
love
love it. We love it. Yes, I will. I'll text you. I already have some venues in mind. So some great
Great.
private dining and bookstore would be great ideas. So
And the other
thank
thing too
you.
is this has been so much fun, and I think it's educational for everybody that watches this. We probably should plan something like this um, on a regular basis and get it out there on YouTube and some others because I see a lot of the other physicians are doing that. It's a great way to get information out. And so when we have a off screen, we'll have a talk and we'll start
Okay,
planning this. Okay.
We
let's
would
do
love
it.
that.
You're on. It's a
You're
date.
on. Game
But you,
on.
but
Game on.
you guys look just great. What an advertisement.
Well, you
Thank
know
you.
what? And I just have to say, Hillary always talks about her age, but I'll be 58 and this is all natural. So
Wow. Yes.
let's go, my friend. Let's
Yes,
go.
Yep.
you look better than most 30-year-olds, so this is going to motivate a lot of people.
Well, you know what? Back at you. So let's do this. To be
We'll do
Okay.
it. Well,
continued.
and as of yesterday, we just launched. I just turned on and am trying to connect our YouTube channel. So that's
Yes.
great. And we're bringing in and starting all of our PR and our promotion for LifeGLOSS. So you are kicking that off for us. So we will absolutely, the groundwork is there and we'll make the date and we'll just start doing it. So thank you.
Thank
Okay. Thanks.
you.
Thanks, guys, so much. It's been
We'll
Thank
great.
see
you.
you
I
soon.
will.
Thank
And
you.
the only thing that keeps me alive is this whole program. And when I'm at school, I'm older than most of the professors. Um, but
But we know you're getting in trouble.
well, that's for sure. The question is, am I older than most of the buildings?
Oh, I don't think so. Well, you're better looking than all the professors. That's
All of the
a fact.
professors. Yeah. I know the professors are probably like, they're so used to having attention from their students, and you're probably like
I
feeling
know,
their thunder. Yes,
Yeah,
right?
I think it makes them a bit nervous when I'm in class, but
probably.
I love it. They should be picking your brain every second
Yeah.
they have you. What a gift.
yeah, thank you.
Oh,
Okay, we'll talk soon,
thank
guys.
you. We'll see you soon. All
All
right.
right.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.